Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Welcome into another edition of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. It is Monday, April 26th. Hopefully everybody had a fantastic weekend out there. I myself got out and enjoyed, did some radio for some high school softball, some play-by-play at the high school level, baseball and softball coming down the stretch here, almost playoff time, so it's always fun to get out behind the microphone, do some play-by-play, keep the locals up to date on the latest high school sports. Hopefully you guys enjoyed yourselves out there. Spring is coming around the corner here in the Northeast. We're going to get into the 70s for the first time coming up this next week. So baseball in the Northeast may actually be a little bit fun this next week. But, I mean, it's pretty crazy with the weather. It was like 30-something this past week and then 60 over the weekend. So we got a great episode lined up for you guys today. We're going to talk about some individual performances and statistics, give you guys an update on the league leaders here early on in the season. Then I'm going to update you guys on some injuries that have taken place here recently. And then, of course, go through the standings and how everybody's been doing here during this past series and over the weekend to let you guys know if there's anything crazy going on out there in the standings. So, jumping right in, individual statistics. We're going to start out on offense and look at the league leaders thus far. And as of Sunday night here, the 25th, the Padres and the Dodgers are still going at it. It's 2-0 Dodgers here early on in the ball game, Sunday night recording. So any Dodgers and Padres statistics not updated, but everybody else will be updated through Sunday's action on ultimately where we're at here. So leading the league in average. Now, this is both National League and American League, so I'll probably break it down here in a minute to try to get to batting champions, but I can also figure it out by team as we go through here. So Yerman Mercedes leads all of baseball with average. He's currently hitting .414 on the year. He's the only guy over 400 as of 425, late of recording here. Give or take 20 games in. Last year, we would have been a third of the way through talking about, can he make it for 60 games? Does it count? What's the deal? So, unfortunately, 162 here, and it doesn't look like these will continue on. But Mercedes has been absolutely fantastic, hitting .414. He is 29 for 70 here early on, 15 RBIs, 4 home runs. We're going to bounce around, look at the league leaders, doubles, home runs, stolen bases, let you guys know kind of who's carrying every category. But number 2 on the list, man, this guy, just so impressive. Mike Trout, LA Angels. I mean, it stinks here on the East Coast that I don't get to watch Mike Trout as much as I really want to, because they play at 10 o'clock. They're never really on TV unless it's a national game. And even then, like I said, it's 10 o'clock on Wednesday Night Baseball. But Trout hitting .393 so far this year, 22 for 56. He's got 14 walks on the year to 20 strikeouts. So he is a bit high in the strikeout category. But when he's putting the ball in play, he's obviously doing damage, hitting to the tune of .393 here. I mean, my goodness, what can't this guy do? He's only getting better, and he continues to get better even after 3 MVP awards, and he was your odds-on favorite coming into the year, so it doesn't look like anybody who put money down on Mike Trout is really sweating their money right now. Omar Narvaez from Milwaukee. He's a surprise entry at number 3 here. He's hitting .389. He's 21 for 54. In 18 games. I mean, I certainly would not have put Narvaez anywhere near the top of the list when we were looking at average before the year, putting in some predictions and guesstimates and things like that. So, heck of a start for Omar Narvaez here early on. 3 home runs, 11 RBIs, but man, he has been excellent. Jesse Winkler for Cincinnati. He is hitting .381 here. He is 24 for 63 so far, 4 home runs, 11 RBIs. He's been very good for Cincinnati, as we know that Cincinnati offense has certainly been a surprise and really good for them thus far. Ronald Acuna Jr., 371. He's 26 for 70. He was in consideration for National League MVP. He had a slide into home plate a few days ago, kind of dinged himself up, nicked him up a little bit, and day-to-day here, but it doesn't look like he's going to miss any serious time. The MRI came back pretty clean, so day-to-day, but that's good news if you're a Braves fan. Acuna doesn't look to be going anywhere. Then you have J.D. Martinez of Boston and Brandon Nimmo of the Mets, both hitting .370. Martinez is 30 for 81 out of the designated hitter spot with 7 home runs, 21 RBIs. And then you got Nimmo, much more of a contact guy. He is 20 for 54 with only 1 home run and 8 RBIs. But both guys hitting .370, hitting for fantastic averages. And man, it's just a great start for those guys. And then to round out the top 10, Xander Bogaerts at .366. Justin Turner out in L.A. continues to mash. People weren't sure if he should get that contract he did in the offseason, but he's making the Dodgers look good for bringing him back. And then Cedric Mullins in Baltimore. We talked about Mullins being one of their surprises here early on, hitting .346, 28 for 81 during the early on to round out the top 10. And then just quickly behind them, Yadier Molina, .339, Bryce Harper, .338, Vlad Guerrero Jr., .338. And then you get into the .333 range with Michael Brantley and Yuri Gurriel to give you the top 15 when it comes to batting average here thus far. Now, if we're looking at strictly power numbers, the home run game, the league lead here is 7 through April 25th. And you have, let's see here, 7 guys tied with 7 at the top of the list. Ronald Acuna out of Atlanta, Nick Castellanos. You have Nelson Cruz in Minnesota, who continues to just mash baseballs, the ageless wonder. He's hitting .323 with 7 dingers. Eduardo Escobar for Arizona, a surprise when it comes to this list. J.D. Martinez, like we mentioned, Ryan McMahon out of Colorado. He had a home run Saturday night against the Phillies. And then you have Shohei Ohtani with 7 home runs and 16 RBIs here offensively. And Ohtani's been absolutely impressive. I mean, on the mound and at the plate, he's staying healthy here for the first month of the season, which has always been a concern for Ohtani, but it's been fun to watch. These guys with 7 home runs. And then you have, let's see here, you have 11 more with 6 home runs. And those guys, Javier Baez, Byron Buxton, Wilson Contreras, Rafael Devers in Boston, Bryce Harper and Rhys Hoskins, both of the Phillies. Tyler Naquin in Cincinnati. Matt Olson, Wilson Ramos, Fernando Tatis Jr. now has 6 home runs after a couple of 2 home run games against the Dodgers. And then you have Mike Trout with 6 home runs to round out those guys. So you have 18 guys with 6 or 7 home runs here. And then, of course, many, many more with 5. But a lot of guys hitting the long ball, and nobody's really, distinguished themselves as a leader of the pack when it comes to the home runs early on. Your RBI leader is J.D. Martinez with 21 in the American League, and Tyler Naquin of Cincinnati with 19. You have Kyle Seager of Seattle with 19 as well. Seager only 3 home runs, but does have 19 RBIs, so he's getting the job done, getting clutch hits for them there in Seattle. Then you have Rafael Devers, Adam Eaton, Nate Lowe, and David Peralta. Oh, Justin Turner as well as 18 RBIs. And I believe he got one more here on Sunday Night Baseball that, like I said, isn't quite updated yet here in this conversation. If we're talking about doubles, we got Michael Brantley and J.D. Martinez leading the league with 10 apiece. They've reached double digits here early on. Martinez impressive because 17 of his 30 hits have gone for extra bases. Next on the list, you got Xander Bogaerts, Ty France out of Seattle, Cedric Mullins, and Luis Robert with 8 apiece. And when it comes to 2 base hits. For triples, Chris Owens in Colorado has 3, and David Peralta in Arizona have 3 to lead the league in that category there. When it comes to base on balls, you got Joey Gallo down in Texas, 21 walks and 30 strikeouts. My man leads the league. Or no, he's second. Tied for second in strikeouts. Javier Baez and Eduardo Suarez have struck out 35 times. Then Arozarena, Chapman, Gallo, and Rhys Hoskins with 30 strikeouts on the year. Max Muncy at 18 walks. Freddie Freeman and Vlad Guerrero Jr. each have 16 in that category. And the last one offensively, stolen bases. Ramon Laureano out in Oakland has 8 stolen bases, as well as Whit Merrifield for Kansas City. They're 3 ahead of the next couple of guys who have 5 here. Baez, Garrett Hampson, Eddie Rosario, Marcus Semien, and Trey Turner all have 5 stolen bases. On base percentage leader, you have Mike Trout at 521. So let's now go to OPS and see who's leading the league there. And there he is, Mike Trout, 1.325. He's ahead of Ronald Acuna Jr. at 1.237. And then J.D. Martinez and Bryce Harper come in at 3.4 with 1.199 and 1.132. And OPS is on base plus slugging. So if you're getting on base and hitting for power, you're going to be leading those categories when it comes to the offensive side of things. So standard cast of characters, a couple of guys mixed in there, but Martinez, Mike Trout at the top of the list. You got Mercedes, obviously, who's been a surprise there, hitting 414, but Acuna, Martinez, Turner, Harper, Vlad, all these guys that you would expect are having solid years here to begin 2021. Now, looking at the pitching side of things, of course, Jacob Degrom leads the league in ERA, 0.31. He's allowed 1 earned run, and he has actually more RBIs than he does earned runs allowed. He's given up 4 runs total, only 1 of them earned, which is just fascinating. He has given up 2 home runs on the year, but again, one of those runs came in as unearned due to an error with 2 outs in the inning. So 0.31, he's allowed 1 earned run in 29 innings, has DeGrom. You guys got to check him out if you haven't watched him pitch yet. Corbin Burns in Milwaukee, number 2 at 0.37. He's only allowed 1 earned run as well, but over the course of 24 1/3. And then you have Danny Duffy for Kansas City. This guy is certainly a surprise. He's been good before. He's got really good stuff, but, he's had some down times as well. So 1 earned run in 23 innings for Duffy to a 0.39 ERA. He's 3-1 on the season, and, man, he is one of the reasons why Kansas City is at the top of the list when it comes to the AL Central. And then you jump all the way down to guys who have given up 4 and 5 earned runs. John Means in Baltimore, a 1.5 ERA through 5 starts, 5 earned runs in 30 innings. Brandon Woodruff in Milwaukee, 1.55. So that 1-2 punch in Milwaukee of Burns and Woodruff has been absolutely electric here thus far, as those guys are both top 5 when it comes to earned run average here in the big leagues. You got Joe Musgrove going for San Diego. He's getting hit around here a little bit tonight by the Dodgers, but coming into tonight, he's got a 1.59 ERA. You got Trevor Rogers in Miami, 1.64 ERA. And then Garrett Cole having a very good year up in New York. He's at 1.71, and he's 8th in the league and earned run average. But that return on investment certainly looking much better this year when it comes to his performance. Max Scherzer, 1.8. Matthew Boyd, good to see him bounce back in Detroit. He could potentially be a big trade chip if he keeps up this type of performance. In 5 starts, he's got a 1.82 ERA as he's allowed 7 earned runs over 34 innings, which could be tops in the league here as we bounce around. So who has the most innings pitched thus far? We have Shane Bieber. He's thrown 36.1 and has a 2.48 ERA. Then you have Boyd with 34.2, followed by Kevin Gausman, who's also been very good for San Francisco. He's got a 2.14 ERA in 33 innings. Zach Greinke, very good for the Astros. He continues to dial it up and then slow it down. 50-some mile-an-hour ephus, 60-some mile-an-hours. He is fun to watch. 32 2/3 innings to a 2.76 ERA. And then Trevor Bauer out in L.A. He's 3-0 with a 2.53 ERA over the course of 32 innings, as him and the Padres had some fun on Saturday night, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Yu Darvish has been good for San Diego. 31 innings, 2.27 ERA. Clayton Kershaw, Aaron Nola, both with 31 2/3. Kershaw's ERA, 2.56. Nola at 2.84. So a lot of top-end starters have been very good so far this year as well. When we look at strikeouts, you have Shane Bieber leading the league with 57. Next up is Garrett Cole, tied with Degrom at 50 apiece, but Cole has one more start than Degrom does. So Cole and Bieber both have one more start than Degrom. So strikeouts per 9, you got to give Degrom the edge there when it comes to that record. Tyler Glasnow for Tampa, very good. 2.05 ERA, 46 strikeouts. Trevor Bauer's got 45 for the Dodgers. And then Burns and Musgrove for Milwaukee and San Diego, each with 40 here early on. Let's look at base on balls. Who's been struggling a little bit? Chad Kuhl in Pittsburgh leads the league with 16. Germain Marquis in Colorado has 16. And then Austin Gomber for Colorado also has 15. So people in Colorado not doing that great. Mike Foltynewicz down in Texas, he's allowed the most home runs in Major League Baseball with 8. Kyle Hendricks for the Cubs has allowed 7. And then Bauer, even though he's been very good, has allowed 6 home runs. So it's been a tough start keeping the ball in the yard if you're Bauer, but everywhere else, he's been absolutely fantastic. When it comes to whip, walks and hits per innings pitched, you got Corbin Burns at .33, Degrom at .55, Bauer .66, Musgrove .67, and then Max Scherzer and Brandon Woodruff at .72 to round out the top 5 or 6. Garrett Cole and Tyler Glasnow right behind them at .73 and .75. But those guys have certainly been very good thus far. The most wins in the major leagues goes to Jack Flaherty in St. Louis. In 5 starts, he is 4-0, a 3.18 ERA. You also have Steven Matz with 4 wins in Toronto and 4 starts. And Eduardo Rodriguez in Boston is 4-0 in 4 starts. So those guys at the top of the list with 4. You got a ton of guys with 3. But 4-0 in 4 starts for Matz and Rodriguez. And then 4 wins in 5 starts for Flaherty. Fantastic starts for them when it comes to the team. A handful of guys with a complete game already. Bumgarner, Gallen, Lynn. Bumgarner and Gallen we'll get to because those were 7-inning complete games. And something interesting happened there that we're going to discuss later on in the episode. But it's been fun to watch. And then out of the bullpen, when it comes to saves, Jake McGee in San Francisco has 7. And Mark Melancon out in San Diego has 7. You have Kenley Jansen with 5 and Alex Reyes with 5. Next on the list there. So a lot of regular names we've heard when it comes to statistics earlier on there. Some good starts for some guys, but man, it's fun to watch here and some surprises as well. So that'll wrap things up here for the first segment of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Let's step aside here for a word from one of our sponsors and one of our sister shows. But when we come back, we got ourselves an injury update. A bunch of guys getting dinged up here. So stick around, find out who it is. We'll be right back after this.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back, and thanks again for listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. It is Sunday night here as of time of recording. Fernando Tatis Jr. just went yard off of Dustin May in the top of the 4th inning to make the score 2-1. Of course, everybody knows last night and this weekend, I think that's 5 home runs in the series for Tatis. Put him up on the list at 7 now, based on our conversation. Last night against Trevor Bauer, was he looking at the signs? Was he not? Him and Bauer had a fantastic exchange on social media. This rivalry is fantastic. I mean, if these two teams could just play 162 times, sign me up. I'd watch every single one of them. You had sword celebrations back and forth. You had the McGregor walk for Tatis after the bomb. Are they going to hit him here tonight because he was possibly looking at the signs? Well, they sure didn't, and then he goes yard here in his second at-bat. So it is just, man, great baseball, great entertainment, and, good for both of these teams, right? Having fun, celebrating, making fun of each other, performing extremely well. This is what baseball needs. I mean, old school baseball, and even on Instagram, right? Like you showed Tatis doing his thing. They have all the clips, right? Whatever, account it is. And then you got guys like Johnny Damon commenting on there with like the bullseye thing and an arrow, and a lot of old school guys going, oh, he's getting drilled. I'm sorry, dude. This is new school baseball. This is new age baseball. Swag is in. This is what we do. We strike you out. We yell. We K-strut. We walk. We shout. We make fun of you. We celebrate as pitchers, right? It is no longer, oh, stoic. This is your job. And if you go yard offensively, twirl the bat, flip the bat, strut around, pause around, do whatever you got to do. Take 30 seconds. Take 10 seconds. Do whatever makes you happy in that moment. Flip it, run it, make fun of the other guy and by doing his celebration, right? He covered one eye one time running around the bases because Bauer threw with one eye in spring training and one eye closed, right? And so he recovers an eye. Then he does the McGregor walk, right? And it's all good between the teams. I'm trying to get you. You're trying to get me. If I get you, I'm going to celebrate. If you get me, you can celebrate. Like, there's no reason to put guys' health in jeopardy by then hitting them with 95. If you don't want them to celebrate, get them out. And if you don't want the pitcher to celebrate, go yard. It's pretty simple what we got going on here, and I love it. It is full entertainment. Bring the kids back in. Bring the new age back in. Maybe some of you guys listening out there aren't going to like that take, but you know what? I watched video of me throwing in high school, throwing in college the other day, reliving the glory days, and I would fist pump. I would yell when I would strike people out, and this was 2007 through 2011, right? So this was 10 years ago where you'd get a little K-strut out of me. You'd get that walk around. If the guy hit a fly ball, I'd start walking off the field right away. You got to play with swag. You got to bring your energy to the ballpark, and that's what's going to bring the fans back, bring the energy back, get people talking about it. It's just great for the game and certainly a lot of fun to watch here, and I'm all for it, man. It is just entertaining baseball this entire weekend out there in L.A. But let's talk some injuries here. Let's dive into segment number 2. We're going to start out with the big names, then I'm going to run through the injury report day to day to see if we missed anybody. But Mike Trout for the Angels. He was out of Saturday's lineup due to an elbow contusion. He's day to day. He got hit in the elbow with a fastball against a game against the Astros. That was Thursday night when that happened. He was held out for a couple of days, but looks like he'll be back here thereafter. If he didn't play here today, he's certainly going to be in the lineup on Monday, but that's not what you want to see based on the stats that I was just talking about with you guys there in the last segment. Is Trout dinged up here in any way going through the year? And there's Dustin May striking out the next 2 hitters after Tatis goes yard, getting a little pissed off, throwing 100 miles an hour now. It's fantastic baseball. If you guys aren't watching, you're doing yourself a disservice. Christian Yelich and Brett Anderson for the Brewers. Yelich underwent an MRI over the weekend to evaluate his lower back stiffness. Everything came back clean. No further damage or no ligaments or anything like that. So it looks like he's going to be off the injured list here in the next couple of days as long as he can continue to progress and move forward. You then have Brett Anderson, who he was the starting pitcher on Friday night's game, and he came out after only 11 pitches with a right knee injury. And this is tough for Brewers fans because they're currently in process of a game in 17 straight days. So 2.5 weeks here without an off day if you're the Brewers. And May strikes out the side, screams into his glove. He's upset Tatis took him yard, but man, struck out the side when he came back. Oh, love it. Good stuff here on Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. Lance Lynn for the White Sox. He's going to come off the 10-day injured list and start Friday against the Indians, barring any setbacks this next week here. He's been on the 10-day IL since the 17th, so he'll be eligible this next upcoming Friday. And looks like he's going to bounce back here after a brief stint there on the IL. Corey Neville for the Dodgers. He got put on the injured list on Saturday. Looks like he's going to miss extended time, potentially up to a couple of months with a right lat strain. So that muscle in your back on the right side. He was removed from yesterday's game against the Padres in the ninth inning after just 5 pitches. And, of course, now we know why. It's a strained muscle, and that's your extension muscle there, right? So you have accelerating and decelerating muscles when you're pitching. When you're winding up and you're getting to releasing the baseball, those are acceleration muscles, increasing velocity, and then when the baseball comes out of your hand, you then have decelerating ligaments and muscles which slow your arm down, basically not letting your arm come off of your body and continue to home plate. And that's the lat muscle that's doing the deceleration. It's your front shoulder, bicep doing the acceleration. You got your trap, your, your push downs. Oh, man, I can't even remember. Bis and triceps. There it is. My goodness. Brain fart there here Sunday night. But you got your tricep that does a lot of the deceleration. So that was after the ball was released. He injured that lat coming back. You got Cristian Pache for the Braves. They optioned him to the alternate site. Even though he was activated off the 10-day injured list on Saturday, they think Pache needs some more consistent at-bats. So he was activated and then pretty much sent down right thereafter when it comes to the Braves. Jake Odorizzi for the Astros. He left Saturday's start with right forearm tightness after only getting 1 out. The relief pitcher then, which we'll talk about here in the next 2 segments, came in and threw 8 2/3, a complete game out of relief, which is just almost historic. I think it's been a number of years since we've seen a line like that, 8 2/3 getting the victory and coming out of the bullpen. Just an interesting day there for the Astros. You have Evan Longoria. He has a tight left hamstring. He left the game this past Thursday. He's been in and out of the lineup since then, and it doesn't look like they want to push it. But, San Francisco's been kind of beat up because you got Donovan Solano with a calf injury, Brandon Crawford dealing with a rib, Brandon Belt dealing with a quad, and now add Evan Longoria and his hamstring to the list of potentially growing injuries out there in San Francisco. For the Dodgers, a number of guys. They keep winning, and yet they're still dealing with some injuries. You got Cody Bellinger, no timetable for his return yet. He is not yet taking at-bats or running at full speed, so he's going to need probably another 2 to 3 weeks before he gets back. You also have Chris Taylor and Zach McKinstry. Both of those guys were scratched from Thursday's lineup with lower back tightness, so they will be day-to-day, hopefully avoiding trips to the injured list. You have Gavin Lux rounding out the Dodgers' issues. He went on the injured list on April 18th, and it looks like he is going to be back as soon as he is eligible here during this upcoming week. It looks like that would be Monday's game against the Reds in Los Angeles, coming off of that injured list. Jock Peterson for the Cubs. He was put on the 10-day injured list on Thursday with tendinitis in his left wrist. This is retroactive to Wednesday, so he's been struggling at the plate for the Cubs, but now we know why with some tendinitis there in one of his wrists. That's a tough issue to deal with. And then Shelby Miller for the Cubs was placed on the 10-day IL with a lower back strain prior to Friday's opener against the Brewers. So a couple of guys heading to the injured list for the Cubs. Next, you got Miguel Cino for the Twins on the 10-day injured list. He has a right hamstring strain. He played in his first game against the doubleheader for the A's the past couple of days, but then was put on the injured list not long thereafter. Ke'Bryan Hayes for the Pirates. Looks like he has re-aggravated his left wrist, and he was taking high-velocity swings, quote-unquote, and then that wrist discomfort came back after an awkward swing at a pitch, and he's going to be out for an extended period of time, which is some bad news if you're a Pirates fan out there. Brian Anderson and the Marlins, prior to Thursday's series opener, they put him on the 10-day injured list with a left oblique strain. They recalled number 8 prospect Jose Devers from the alternate training site, but Anderson for the Marlins is going to be down for at least 10 days. And then you have Dinelson Lamet for the Padres. He moved to the 10-day injured list with right forearm tightness. He had discomfort during his first start, came out after a couple of innings. There's some good news in San Diego, but depending on what source you're listening to, it looks like no further inflammation in the elbow or forearm. Lement said he feels very, very good. He's going to resume a throwing program Friday. And Jace Tingler, the manager, said they're going to proceed as if he's ready when he's going to be up for those 10 days. But if you're looking at some other sources here online and you kind of get Lament's name, one of them says he's going to be out till at least June 1st. So that's about 6 weeks. So one source is saying he'll be ready in 10 days. The other one's saying 6 weeks. And so it's certainly TBD when it comes to his return date here and his throwing progression moving forward. But looking at the day-to-day injured list here, starting with Thursday since I talked to you guys last, Mike Soroka for the Braves expected to be out till at least June 15th with a shoulder injury. We got Jorge Guzman down in Miami, an elbow. He's going to be out for a couple of weeks, a starting pitcher. Then we got Chad Kuhl, a shoulder, is out for at least a week for the Pirates, as well as Hayes. You have Kiwan Kila. He's going to be out for a week with some shoulder issues out of San Diego's bullpen. That's a tough break for them. Donovan Solano, we mentioned. He's going to be out a couple of weeks for the Giants here. And then the Blue Jays dealing with some injuries. They got 4 guys popping up on the list here Thursday. Thomas Hatch, a relief pitcher, is going to be out till at least June with some elbow discomfort. You have Nate Pearson dealing with a groin issue. Looking like it's going to be a couple of weeks for Pearson. Ross Stripling, a starting pitcher. He's day-to-day, could miss a start, but nothing serious there. And then Julian Merriweather, a relief pitcher. He was killing it early on in the year. We talked about how he was one of the surprises and one of the positives coming out of Toronto, and now he has an oblique issue and is going to be out for about a month here for the Blue Jays. So a tough break there up in Toronto. And then on Friday, Joakim Soria for Arizona, day-to-day with a calf issue. Ryan Brazier, relief pitcher for Boston, out a couple of weeks with a calf issue. Anthony Rendon, he's got a groin now for the Angels. He's day-to-day. Could be back at the beginning of this week, but they're going to have to give him a couple of days off. Jace Peterson for the Brewers, he's expected to be out for a week with a thumb issue. Second baseman, he'll be down for a little bit. Andrelton Simmons, he's day-to-day with an illness. And then you got some Phillies here who are day-to-day. Jose Alvarado, Ronald Torres, and Matt Moore, all in the COVID protocol. Nobody knows who tested positive or what's going on there, but they're all day-to-day with undisclosed injuries. Adrian Morejon, starting pitcher for San Diego. He's going to miss the rest of the year with an elbow injury. He looks like he's probably going to need Tommy John and be shut down for the rest of 2021 and hopes to set things up for 2022 here coming back. St. Louis, you got John Nagowski dealing with a hand issue. He's going to be out about a week for the Cardinals. For the Rays, you got Chris Archer and Peter Fairbanks. Both of those guys are going to be out a couple of weeks. Archer has a forearm and Fairbanks with a shoulder issue for the Rays. Sam Huff, the catcher down there in Texas, is out till at least July with some knee issues. And that's the last thing you want to hear is a knee problem at the catcher's position for the Rangers. And then Will Harris, a relief pitcher for Washington, is going to be out for at least 2 weeks dealing with a hand issue when it comes to his injury. On Saturday, the Chicago White Sox, Adam Engel, he has a hamstring injury. The right fielder is going to be out for a couple of weeks till May 7th. You got Lance Lynn coming back like we talked about. Odorizzi day-to-day based on his arm issue. Some other guys for the Dodgers, Joe Kelly out with a shoulder issue a couple of weeks. Zach McKinstry, right fielder, he's out with an oblique issue. Tony Gonsolin, starting pitcher, out for about a month with a shoulder problem. So things are kind of creeping up there for L.A., and then Milwaukee, we touched on Anderson, Yelich, but Josh Lindblom is out for a couple of weeks here with a knee issue. For the New York Mets, you got Dylan Betances. He's out till at least June with a shoulder injury. Carlos Carrasco looks to have a couple of weeks left as he's returning from a hamstring issue. For Oakland, A.J. Puck has some biceps tendonitis. He's going to be out a couple of weeks there in Oakland. You got Austin Nola in San Diego, the catcher, dealing with some finger issues day-to-day. And George Springer is finally day-to-day in Toronto. And then quite a few coming in here late on Sunday. Let's just look at the serious ones. You got Max Fried with a hamstring issue for Atlanta. He's going to be out for a couple of weeks here. You have Chris Davis dealing with a back issue in Baltimore. The first baseman's going to be out for at least a month and a half, according to CBS Sports here. And then scrolling down the list, we got Aristides Aquino, the right fielder for Cincinnati. He's going to be out till the month of June with a wrist issue. A bunch of guys tweaking hamstrings, thumbs, shoulders day to day here. Let's see. Are there any other serious ones as we scroll down? Hyun-Jin Ryu got a hip issue, maybe a week or two, but it doesn't look like any of them a couple of months here as some guys got dinged up on Sunday. But that'll do it for segment number 2 of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. Let's step aside again here for a word from one of our sponsors and one of our sister shows. But when we come back, we're going to talk about this weekend's games and the standings. Let's start out in the National League. Let's have some fun, everyone. We'll be right back after this.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And thanks for listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. Have you guys checked us out on social media yet? If you haven't, you should head to Twitter. Follow the GSMC Baseball page, as well as Facebook. Same title, same name, GSMC Baseball. And then you also got the Podcast Network. They're on Facebook. They're on LinkedIn. Across the board, you should give us both a follow. We appreciate it here. As well as share us with your friends. If you haven't sent a text message out going, hey, this kid Kevin, he talks to us every Monday and Thursday. He's good stuff here when it comes to baseball. Hit those 3 little dots. If you're on Apple Podcasts, hit share. Hit that message tab and text us to one of your buddies. I mean, that goes a long way for helping us continue to grow this page and grow this podcast here and become one of the best when it comes to daily baseball information for you guys out there. While you're listening here, please rate and review the podcast. We appreciate it. Hit that like button, 5 stars, subscribe, whatever it may be. I certainly appreciate you guys continuing to do all of that out there across the board to help us stay on top here when it comes to baseball and bringing you guys some intel and information. So let's jump into the standings. What's been going on here over the past couple of days when it comes to Major League Baseball? Starting out in the National League East, and man, does this division stink or what? This is just fascinating baseball. I mean, looking at the National League, just from, bird's eye, 3,000 feet here, 30,000 feet, whatever the saying is, looking at run differentials in the NL East, you got -11, -15, -12, -24, and then +1. You got one team in the positive, and that team is the Miami Marlins at 9-12 are a +1 differential. 4 out of the 5 teams are minus double digits. So everybody in the National League East is looking at everybody else going, thank gosh they stink because we stink too. You got one team over 500. That team's in first place, and they have a -11 run differential. And then just continuing to zoom out, looking at the National League West, all 5 teams have a positive run differential. Even the Colorado Rockies at 8-13 have a +6 run differential. That's fascinating. How can you be 5 games under 500 and have outscored your opponents? Are you just winning games 10-1 and then losing 4-1, 4-3? You're losing all your games by 1 run and winning by a ton? I mean, that is just Oh, wow. That's a trivia question. Which division now in baseball is all 5 teams have a positive run differential? Because there's only one right now, and that's the National League West. And then which division has the least amount of teams with a positive run differential? And that's the National League East, with the highest one being +1, the Miami Marlins. My goodness, all 5 of these teams just trying to figure it out here early on. But you do have your first place Let's Go Mets. The Let's Go's, the New York Mets at 9-8. They're behind in games played, of course, just due to that cancellation at the top of the season due to COVID restrictions. But they were swept by the Cubs in 3 games. And outside of those series, 2 out of 3 in Colorado, 2 out of 3 against the Nationals here. They face the Red Sox coming up next year early this week. But 9-8, first in the NL East. It's just, man, I mean, they're tough to grasp, right? Like, Stroman's been very good for them. Of course, Degrom has been absolutely electric. When it comes to offensively, I mean, Francisco Lindor's hitting .210 with 1 home run and 3 RBIs. So certainly not living up to that contract thus far. But you got J.D. Davis, you got Nemo, Pete Alonso's hitting .267. I mean, Jacob Degrom leads the team in average. He's hitting .545. Now he's 6 for 11 because he only hits when he pitches in 4 games. But, man, that is just super impressive to see with Degrom there offensively and defensively. In second place, you got the Philadelphia Phillies, who can't win a game away from Citizens Bank Park. They're now 2-7 on the road, and a combined horrible record since 2018. I think it's like 70-120 away from home when it comes to games away from Citizens Bank. And they've lost back-to-back series. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Giants, lost 2 out of 3 to the Rockies. Next up, they got 4 against the Cardinals in St. Louis coming up. I mean, as a fan, best case, I'm hoping for a split. Offensively, you got Bryce Harper leading the way. He's been absolutely fantastic. He's hitting .338. He's got 6 home runs, 10 RBIs. He's been everything we wanted him to be, but Gene Segura was getting hot. Then he goes down with an injury, and Didi Gregorius' defense is a struggle. The bullpen's blown a few games lately. It's just kind of that same old song and dance there in Philadelphia. And then you got the Marlins at 9-12, somehow a +1 run differential, but they lost, let's see here, 3 out of 4 to the Giants. They now head to Milwaukee to continue their road trip, and running into, that rotation there isn't going to be a lot of fun for them. Offensively, they're led by Starling Marte hitting .316. He's dealing with an injury now, though. Corey Dickerson hitting .304. He's at the top of the list. It's tough for Miami. I mean, the rotation has been solid. Let's check in on some of the pitching statistics here. Sandy Alcantara, he's been okay, 3.34 ERA. I don't see Sixto Sanchez on the list here, so we're still waiting to see Sixto kind of show his stuff. But the Atlanta Braves, 9-12. They got swept on Sunday here in 7-inning doubleheader. And this is one of the interesting ones to talk about, but they got 1 hit in 14 innings today here on Sunday, and they were actually no hit by Madison Bumgarner over 7 innings. Now, this doesn't go into the record books as a no-hitter because there was a ruling back in 1992, I believe it was, or 1991, that the game has to go at least 9 innings to count as a no-hitter, which, again, I don't have much of an argument. Maybe just put an asterisk and put 7-inning no-hitter because they're playing 7 innings, so it's certainly a no-hitter. But Bumgarner didn't allow a hit over 7 innings. Gallen allowed 1 hit over 7 innings. So Atlanta's offense, 0 runs in 14 innings and only 1 hit. And this was coming after a split in New York. Just tough, man. Arizona, they had it going today on the mound. And Atlanta certainly couldn't figure it out there. But Ronald Acuna Jr. continues to rake. He's hitting .371. He's tops on the list there as a bunch of the other guys like Freddie Freeman only hitting .205. Still trying to come around here in 2021 and find the offense. The Nationals at 8-11. They are 5-5 in their last 10. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Mets after winning 2 out of 3 to the Cardinals. They travel to take on the Blue Jays next here, as again, Scherzer's been good for them, but Patrick Corbin really struggling when it comes to the mound. In the National League Central, the Brewers, they've been impressive. They continue their nice start at 13-8. They have a 2-game lead over the Cardinals, and the Pirates at 500. So the Cincinnati Reds have lost 7 straight. That's one of the streaks going on here. They went from 9-5 to 9-12, and they are now in the basement of the National League Central, even though they have a plus 11 run differential. Kind of a fascinating statistic there. But Milwaukee, they've won 5 out of 6. They swept the Padres in San Diego earlier this week, and then they bounced that up with taking 2 out of 3 in Chicago, and now they welcome the Marlins to town here. And doing this without Christian Yelich, kind of a fascinating start for them. I mean, offensively, Omar Narvaez, again, has been the big winner for them. They got Tyrone Taylor and Christian Yelich hitting well, but Yelich being injured, nobody really else offensively kind of dealing for them. Second place, you got the St. Louis Cardinals at 11-10. They've won 3 straight as they swept the Cincinnati Reds this weekend at home. They had lost 2 out of 3 in Washington and 2 out of 3 in Philadelphia during their trip, but now they're feeling good as they welcome Philadelphia back to town for 4 games in St. Louis. And offensively, Yadier Molina continues to rake. He's hitting .339. Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado both down around that .250 mark, but producing offensively. Dylan Carlson at .309. So some of the big bats offensively continuing to kind of come around here. Then you got the Pittsburgh Pirates at 11-11. They've won a couple of straights, taken 2 out of 3 against the Twins after 2 out of 3 at the Tigers. So a nice little road trip there for Pittsburgh. Certainly a surprise how these guys are performing. You have the Kansas City Royals coming up next for the Pirates. And let's look at their offense. Who's really been doing it for them? You got Adam Frazier at the top of the list hitting .310. Phillip Evans leading the team with 4 home runs. You got Brian Reynolds out in left field hitting .304. So kind of a balanced attack when it comes to Pittsburgh. And seeing them at 11-10 here, you got to be happy if you're a Buccos fan thus far. The Chicago Cubs are 10-11. They lost 2 straight to Milwaukee, but prior to that had won 4 in a row, so they're 4-2 in their last 6. They'll travel now to Atlanta to face the Braves. The Braves took 2 of 3 against the Cubs about a week ago, so they'll be looking to win that series down there in Atlanta. Offensively, has anybody for Chicago come around yet? I mean, their team average is still .216, but you do have Chris Bryant now hitting .292 with 5 home runs and 12 RBIs. Javier Baez has 6 home runs. Wilson Contreras has 6 home runs, but Baez still hitting .234. If Chris Bryant keeps this up and somehow Chicago falters down the stretch and fades from playoff contention, you may actually be able to get something for him in return if you're a Cubs fan, because I don't think they're going to sign him if he does hit free agency for next year. The Cincinnati Reds at 9-12, like I said, have lost 7 straight. There were 3 to the Cardinals, 3 to the Diamondbacks, 1 to the Indians in that stretch, and then things don't get any easier for them as they travel to L.A. to face the Dodgers here. So Cincinnati really needs to turn things around sooner than later, or they're going to fall out of contention here as they're already full games out. Now, of course, it is early, fall out of contention, right? That's probably a bit extreme, but you don't want to be down 7-8 games here by the end of April and have to play catch-up for the entire year. Jesse Winkler has been good for them offensively. You also have Stevenson, Castellanos hitting .304, so the offense hasn't been the problem. The pitching staff letting down the Reds thus far, but 9-12, losing 7 straight, certainly not what you want to see as a Reds fan. Now we look at the National League West. Of course, here we have a 2-1 game with the Dodgers and the Padres going on, but the past 2 days have been absolutely electric, or last 3 days, I should say, as this is a 4-game set. The Padres took the first 2 against the first-place Dodgers, who are 15-6 so far this year. Fernando Tatis Jr. and one-eyed home run trot doing the McGregor strut. Tatis has 2 multi-homer games. He's homered here again tonight, so he's been very good for the Padres thus far. But L.A., 2-4 in their last 6, so a bit of a sputter here for the first time when it comes to the 2021 season. Now, they are on pace to win tonight, up 2-1, but still a lot of baseball left to be played here in Sunday Night Baseball. Justin Turner hitting .356 like we talked about. He's been very good thus far. You got Mookie Betts at .271, Corey Seager .263, Max Muncy $262. So the offense starting to come back to life when it comes to statistics, come back to earth here, I should say, in regards to kind of, trending back towards the mean. The San Francisco Giants, they're one of the surprises here early on, absolutely, in the National League, as they have won 6 of 8. They took 2 out of 3 against the Phillies, and then 3 out of 4 versus the Marlins, and now face the last-place Colorado Rockies coming up here over the next couple of days. So they are 14-8 currently, 1.5 games out, so it could be 1 or 2 by the end of Sunday Night Baseball. But offensively, who's leading the way here? Let's see. Let me click on this filter, get an update for you. You got Evan Longoria hitting .291 and Buster Posey hitting .277, each with 4 home runs at the top of the list for the Giants there, as they've been one of the surprises. San Diego at 12-11. They have a +8 run differential, like we said, taking 2 out of 3 so far against the Dodgers after being swept by the Brewers. So nice to see them bounce back here. And their offense trying to figure things out, come around. Eric Hosmer's been good, hitting .306 thus far. Manny Machado only at .247. Let's see here. We got Tatis Jr. starting to figure things out. Like we said, he's only hitting .226, but does now have 7 home runs on the year, so hitting for power in the middle of that lineup. You got the Diamondbacks at 11-11. They made it back to 500 here after sweeping the Braves on Sunday, and they've won 6 of 7. They swept the Reds, 2 out of 3 from the Braves, and then they face the Padres next. So it'll be a nice test for the Diamondbacks, as Bumgarner has been terrible this year up until Sunday. 7-inning no-hitter, complete game shutout. It's been real interesting to see him have success against a Braves lineup that's very good, but struggling against everybody else. So the Diamondbacks continue to play good baseball here, and maybe they can get back into things out west. And then in the basement, you got the Colorado Rockies at 8-13. Still a positive run differential. They've won, 4 out of their last 5 to get to 8-13. They took 2 out of 3 from the Phillies. They swept the Astros in a 2-game set, and now they'll travel to San Francisco to face the Giants in what will be a nice matchup for those two out west. But looking at the playoffs, where things currently stand in the National League, let's see. You have your first place LA Dodgers, second place Milwaukee Brewers, third place New York Mets, and then your 2 wild card teams. One of them right now is the San Francisco Giants. They're ahead by a decent margin when it comes to the wild card. And then your 5th and final playoff team, there's quite a few teams in the mix right now, but based on winning percentage, that would be the St. Louis Cardinals at 11-10. .524 winning percentage, just ahead of the Padres at 12-11. Now, if the Padres win tonight, they would be in the playoffs after today as well. But if they go down, St. Louis would be the 5th and final qualifying team out of the National League. So a lot of interesting things happen in the National League. The NL East stinks. The NL West, very good. And the NL Central, a mix of both taking place so far this year. But that'll do it here for segment number 3 of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Let's step aside one last time here for a word from one of our sponsors and one of our sister shows. But when we come back to wrap things up, we're going to talk about the American League. What's going on in the AL? Stick around and find out.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Welcome into the 4th and final segment of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Appreciate you guys tuning in today. Hopefully you enjoyed your weekend out there and your Monday, your workday's off to a fantastic start. If you guys are listening to this here on Monday. If not, if it's later in the week, hopefully the week's been going well. I mean, that's the beauty of podcast, on-demand content. You guys can listen whenever you want. And if you're looking for more on-demand content, you should check out the other shows within the podcast network. Wherever you're listening to this, hit that little search icon, magnifying glass, whatever it is, type in GSMC, and it'll bring up 15, 20 different shows, 25, however many we have. Things are continuing to grow. We got weird news. We got books. We got politics, all the different sports. The NFL draft's coming up this week. Maybe you want to check out some of the latest draft content, see what's going on there. Fantasy football talk has already started. So it's there's a lot of content for you guys, no matter what you're into. Type in GSMC, and it'll bring you to all the different shows that we have to offer. But now we're going to look at the American League, starting out in the American League East. Certainly been a surprise thus far with the Boston Red Sox at the top of the division at 14-9. And one of the reasons they're at the top of the division is their record away from Boston. They are 6-1 on the road so far. That is the best in the major leagues. You have Kansas City at 5-2, Oakland at 6-2, but nobody else really close to that record. I mean, 6-1 for Boston is certainly impressive for what they've done away from Fenway Park up there in Massachusetts. But they split a 4-game series, going 2-2 against the Marlins over the past couple of days after splitting a series with the Blue Jays. So been playing 500 ball here, 5-5 in their last 10, but still at the top of the division at 14-9. And we know J.D. Martinez, a big reason why offensively, hitting 370, 7 home runs, 21 RBIs. But you also have Xander Bogaerts hitting 366, Alex Verdugo hitting 325. And the offense continues to just be really impressive for Boston. And then, like we mentioned, Eduardo Rodriguez, 4-0 in his 4 starts. It's been fun to watch if you're a Red Sox fan here through the month of April, and certainly a surprise. Next, we got the Tampa Bay Rays in second place at 11-11. They are 6-4 over their last 10. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Blue Jays over the weekend here after taking 2 of 3 against Kansas City. So Toronto trying to push their way back into it, but Tampa Bay went on a run before that to get back to 500 as they're getting back into the conversation here in the East. Joey Wendell, really the only guy hitting for him, hitting 324. Randy Arozarena starting to get hot. He's hitting 278 with 3 home runs. But the rest of the offense trying to pick things up here as they're looking to, make a move. You got the Toronto Blue Jays here, at 10-11 in third place. Like I said, 2 out of 3 against the Rays. They split with Boston before that. Next up, they got the Nationals. The Nationals will travel to Toronto to face off against the Blue Jays. Offensively, Toronto's been led by Vlad Guerrero Jr. He's hitting 338, 4 home runs, 12 RBIs. You got Randall Grichuk, 292 with 4 home runs and 16 RBIs, which leads the team. Bo Bichette hitting 250. Marcus Semien, one of their offseason signings, hasn't really hit yet. And then they're soon going to get, they're soon going to get, oh my gosh, brain fart here, out in center field from the Astros. They're going to get him back. Can't remember his name. I don't know. George Springer. There it is. My goodness. It's late on Sunday. It's been a long weekend, but George Springer going to be back and be a boost for the Blue Jays here in the next couple of days. The New York Yankees and the Baltimore Orioles are tied in the basement at 9-12. So the Yankees no longer the worst record in the American League, as they had won 3 out of 4 against the Indians over the weekend, splitting with the Braves before that. But so they're starting to play some better baseball, 4-2 in their last 6. Giancarlo Stanton hit 2 massive home runs against Cleveland. Man, they were just bombs, just absolute bombs. If you haven't seen the highlights of those 2 yet, whoo, baby, check those out. Go to Twitter, just type in Giancarlo Stanton or Stanton home runs. And my God, he was setting records. StatCast, I think one of them came out at 115 miles an hour. The next one was at like 113. And they were just, you can't even try to catch them if you're in the stands. I don't care if you're 400 plus feet away. Do not try to catch that baseball. It is coming in hot. So he's starting to figure things out a little bit. He's got 5 home runs now, even though he's only hitting 186. that was a good day for him over the weekend. And then you got the Orioles. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Athletics, but they finally ended the Athletics win streak. We'll get to that, but that one was up to 13, I believe it was. Yeah, 13 straight for the Athletics after they finally lose on Sunday by a score of 8-1. Baltimore, of all people, ends that streak, and Baltimore faces the Yankees next. So, battle of the basement when it comes to the American League East here over the next couple of days. Now talking about the American League Central, another surprise team at the top of the division. You got the Kansas City Royals at 13-7. They have won 4 straight. They continue to play great baseball. 7-3 in their last 10, but they swept the Tigers. 3 out of 4 against Detroit with a makeup game coming Monday. So they got one more against the Tigers before they move on to their next series. It's been fun to watch Kansas City. Let's see here. They've definitely been the biggest surprise so far in baseball. Some people thought that over-under, I think it was 80 or 78, could have been a little bit low. I was kind of on the push area, but through the first month, Danny Duffy has certainly been a heck of a lot better than I think anybody predicted. Michael Taylor's been good for them. Whit Merrifield's been good. Salvador Perez, Carlos Santana. So the Royals, just a solid ball club with a lot of professional at-bats. And if they get pitching, they could hang around in that AL Central. In second place, you got the Chicago White Sox, who have won 4 in a row. They're starting to come around, starting to figure things out. They have the biggest run differential at plus 21 in the AL Central and the largest run differential in the entire American League in a positive manner at plus 21. They swept the Texas Rangers. They had one game against the Indians they won. So let's see here. They're 6-1 in their last 7. Playing really good baseball, starting to figure things out across the board. Like we said, Yermin Mercedes leading the league in hitting at 413 or 414. Tim Anderson hitting 333, Nick Madrigal 308, Luis Robert 305, and then you got the last year's MVP, Jose Abreu, with 5 home runs, but only hitting 225 on the year, as his average has certainly dipped thus far. Next up, you got the Indians at 9-11 at third place. They're 3-7 in their last 10. Their run differential is even. They did lose 3 out of 4 to New York over the weekend. Lost to the White Sox in there. Lost 2 out of 3 to the Reds. So they are 2-6 in their last 8 after a nice start. This is their first kind of sputter so far this year, as they'll look to kind of end the bleeding moving forward. But you got Franmil Reyes hitting 286, Jose Ramirez hitting 247, Eddie Rosario 216, Cesar Hernandez only hitting 197. So the offense in Cleveland has certainly been letting them down thus far. The Minnesota Twins have been a disappointment. They're 7-13 overall. They're 2-8 in their last 10, as they lost 2 out of 3 to the Pirates after getting swept by the Athletics. Lost 3 out of 4 to Boston in there. So, again, the Twins, certainly one of the more disappointing teams thus far, along with the Yankees in the American League when you're looking at the standings and who was predicted to finish where. But Nelson Cruz, not the reason why offensively. He's been excellent. 323, 7 home runs, 15 RBIs. Josh Donaldson's been very good in his return, hitting 393 in only 9 games. Byron Buxton continues to hit 382. Andrelton Simmons hitting 355. So the offense hasn't been the issue when it comes to the Twins and why they're struggling. But some of the pitching staff, you have Barrios with a 3 ERA, Pineda 2.42. So, but Kenta Maeda, who came in as one of their aces at 6-11 so far, he's been a disappointment through the first month here of the season. And then finally, in last place in the Central, you got the Detroit Tigers at 7-15. They're 1-9 in their last 10. They got swept by the Royals, swept by the Athletics, and 1 out of 3 versus the Pirates. Now they got one more against the Royals coming up here, so it's tough to be a Tigers fan now, but we thought that this team may come back to earth here. Not a ton of success offensively. Yaimer Candelario is really tops hitting 268. But Matthew Boyd's certainly been that bright spot, as we discussed at the top of the show, looking at some of the individual statistics. Out west here, you got the Oakland Athletics in first place at 14-8. Their 13-game win streak finally came to an end against the Orioles. But they had swept the Diamondbacks in 2 games, the Tigers in 4, the Twins in 3, 2 out of 3 against the Astros to start the streak before finally losing to Baltimore here. But they're still 14-8. That puts them right there for the second-best record in baseball. Their winning percentage, or third-best winning percentage when it comes to overall across both leagues. Offensively, Matt Olson has really come around. He's up to .319, 6 home runs, 17 RBIs. He's been hot during the streak. Matt Chapman still struggling big time, hitting .157 for them. But just been an overall team effort there in Oakland to really pull away and lead the division now by only a game against the Seattle Mariners. Because Seattle, they split with the Red Sox 2-2. They split with the Dodgers before that, took 2 out of 3 from Houston. So they're playing some decent baseball. They'll travel to Houston to face the Astros in what's a solid early season matchup here with some ramifications. Offensively, some surprises. Ty France hitting .316 for them. He's kind of come out of nowhere there at third base. Mitch Haniger, he's got 5 home runs, hitting .292. J.P. Crawford, .239. Kyle Seager, .235. But Seattle playing good baseball here, 6-4 in their last 10 with a +4 run differential. You got the LA Angels at 10-10, exactly .500 in third place, 3 games out. They lost 3 out of 4 to the Astros as the Astros bounced back. The Astros are in 4th place at 10-11, turning things around. But the Angels lost 2 out of 3 to Texas and then 3 out of 4 to the Astros, and now they'll face the Rangers here once again. No thanks to Shohei Ohtani. Of course, he's been good. 7 home runs, 16 RBIs. You got Mike Trout hitting .393. Ohtani's hitting .286. Anthony Rendon, .290. But the pitching there for the Angels continues to be so-so, which is why they're only .500. For the Houston Astros at 10-11 in 4th place, they were swept by the Rockies, lost 2 out of 3 to the Mariners before winning 3 out of 4 to the Angels, but they'll get another shot at Seattle here as they'll welcome them down to Houston as they continue to try to turn things around. Offensively, Michael Brantley leading the way, hitting .333. You got Yuri Gurriel hitting .333. Altuve still dealing with some COVID issues at .318. Bregman, .316. Correa, .284. You got Yordan Alvarez, .279. So trying to figure things out down in Houston, but taking 3 out of 4 against a division foe, the Angels, certainly has to feel good. The Texas Rangers in the basement at 9-13. They have a -18 run differential. They were swept by the White Sox after winning 2 out of 3 against the Angels, which they'll try to duplicate with their next upcoming series against the Angels. So Joey Gallo, he's working a ton of walks, a .444 on-base percentage, but only hitting .242. Does only have the 1 home run, which is certainly a surprise here early on. Willie Calhoun, .333. Nick Solak, .296. But Texas certainly remains in rebuild mode there in the American League West. So looking at the playoff picture in the American League, let's see here. You got your number 1 seed, Kansas City Royals, at .650 winning percentage. Your 2 seed would be the Oakland Athletics, and your 3 seed, the Boston Red Sox, as your division winners. Your 2 wild card teams, well, your first wild card is the Seattle Mariners, and then the Chicago White Sox. All those guys at least 3 games over .500, kind of separated themselves from the other teams across the league when it comes to the playoffs here at this particular moment. But the Royals are a surprise. The Red Sox are a surprise. It's a fun time to be a baseball fan because you got a lot of action happening. Some teams have struggled early on. The Twins, the Yankees. Other teams have exceeded expectations. The Royals, I mean, it is fun. The Mariners are very good. So, tune in every day. Something new's happening. Like I said, Sunday you had a 7-inning no-hitter. That doesn't count as a no-hitter. It happened, but because it wasn't at least 9 innings, it's not going to make its way into the record books. So another fun week in baseball here. Like I said, we're in the top of the 6 between the Padres and Dodgers. It's 2-1, but Fernando Tatis on base once again and just stole second. So it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out here. But we had a fantastic episode for you guys here again today. Talked about some of the league leaders at the top of the show. Who's leading the league in hitting, home runs, RBIs, ERA, strikeouts, walks, all that good stuff. Then I gave you guys an update on the injuries across baseball. A lot of guys dinged up out there, but only a few serious injuries to talk about. And then, of course, giving you guys an update on the standings here over the past couple of segments. But before I let you guys run, if you're still listening at the end of the podcast here, I love you guys. I appreciate you tuning in. Please like, rate, and review. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you're at. Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, all that good stuff. And then if you haven't done so yet, check us out on social media. That goes a long way for helping us continue to grow here at the GSMC Baseball Podcast. But that'll wrap it up for today's episode. It's Monday, April 26th. Hopefully you guys have a fantastic week out there. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik, as always. I'll talk to you guys again on Thursday.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.